do not know who built the silo. We do not know why everything outside the silo is as it is. We do not know when it will be safe to go outside. We only know that day is not this day.
Come along with us on an idle ride through the latest science fiction and fantasy shows, movies, and video games. Welcome to Idle Ride. I'm Marcy, your host, here with my co-host and chosen brother, Paul, as always.
Are you ready to ride idle with us?
Yeah. So, audience, we've made it to season 3 of Idle Ride. It's a new year with some new fun content.
We passed the terrible twos.
We sure did. And it's exciting that we've been able to kind of release more regularly. Though spring is hitting hard here in Portland, so I'm definitely wanting to spend less time editing and more time out in the sunshine, but don't worry, I'll try to get things on time. I'm already late this week. But
it snowed in Utah about a week ago, and I made it from Denver to Utah without any problems in the 5 snowstorms and the fog, and then I got stuck in the bottom of the driveway.
So ironic. I made it through hell to get here, and then my house won't let me in its driveway.
I'm going to just crawl up to bed.
Yeah, it is funny because in Portland, it only snowed like a week and a half ago or something, and now it's 60 degrees.
Jeez.
So there you go.
To me, that is summer.
Yeah. The beginning of season 3 here, we'll be reviewing Silo from Apple Plus. I absolutely love this series. Super excited to talk about it with Paul.
Yeah, we've already watched the first season of this because we saw it a while ago. It was sort of an inspiration for doing some of this stuff that we've been doing. We've been talking about it in the background for a while. So yeah, we're happy to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Silo was one of the first shows I wanted to review, but then all this other content starts coming out and you're like, oh, I want to review that first because it's coming out right now, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to be able to go back to Silo. So the first episode of Silo is called Freedom Day, and I want to talk a little bit about the Silo book series before we get into the episode.
Good, because that is fresh for me. I just read the first 45 pages yesterday.
Well, I originally read it way back pretty close to when it first came out, which was in 2011, though I read it in book form, so it was quite a bit after that, I'm sure, because it was originally printed as a short story, and it was a self-published short story through Amazon Kindle Direct, and it was one of the first books, I think, to ever become truly popular through self-publishing. And then since then, people have been self-publishing like crazy. But at that time, it really wasn't a thing that authors would actually make money or have a popular book through self-publishing. So it was a short story. It was just, I think that 42 pages that you read, the first episode of Silo is basically only 45 pages of the book. And then Hugh Howey, who is the author, after it got popular, decided to do several novellas over several periods of time.
He just liked the world that he made, basically.
Yeah, and I think people were asking for more of the story. So he kind of just did it as a series of novellas and then later put them all together as one book called Wool. So that's the book's name is Wool, and Silo is the name of the series. I have some things to say about that. I think Paul does too, that it's pretty noticeable in the book Wool that it was several stories written separately.
Mm-hmm.
And Silo, the series, the television show, does a really good job of actually making a more cohesive storyline. So, first episode, Freedom Day.
Freedom!
I do have an alternative title for this called Where Holston Gaslights Allison for an Hour.
Oh my God. Yes, let's just jump right into that because he is sort of a douche about it. He's like, some women just be baby crazy.
Yes, and like the doctor too is like, don't worry, I've met hundreds of women who have gone crazy because of this. He literally calls her crazy. She's like, I'm not crazy, you motherfucker.
She's like, I literally cut this shit out of my belly. Like, I've got an open wound. I'm not just baby crazy here.
Yeah, so it's pretty much a story about Allison.
Which
but it starts...
I keep thinking of as just the beautiful, lovely, wonderful Anne from Parks and Rec.
Yeah, so we'll get into it a little bit here at the beginning where we'll talk about the actors that play these main characters. But yes, Rashida Jones, amazing. She is the beautiful, wonderful, amazing Anne from Parks and Rec. She's been in so many things. It was wonderful to see her this. And actually, I feel like Rashida Jones has been in a couple of Apple Plus shows, but we'll talk about it in just a second.
And all I want to say is when I first watched this episode, I was like, I can't wait to see 9 more episodes of her.
Oh, yeah. Well, good luck. So I do have kind of some titles for the sections of the episodes because it's a little unlike Fallout where you were just following main characters.
True.
So instead, I'm just going to talk about each section of the episode. So in this section, it culminates in Holston putting himself in holding cell 3. So this is the beginning of the episode, which is almost a direct parallel, yes, a direct parallel to the book, where the book opens with Holston kind of in holding cell 3, thinking through some of the things that are happening to him. And here you see Holston doing a couple of things that are really interesting. And if you have already watched all of season 1, he is putting a vase of flowers in front of the mirror and he's writing a little note. What does it say? Doubt the flowers in front of the mirror. And yeah, so it's kind of an interesting beginning where, if you remember, later the flowers become very important to Juliet, and this note becomes very important to Juliet. I don't know what you think, but I find it quite interesting that the main characters, because Juliet eventually becomes a sheriff, is actually the police of the silo, and how they're kind of caught between judicial, which is what you could consider like the military.
Yeah. What a great name for that, huh?
And the people. So like who do the police help? The people, or are they beholden to this kind of corrupt judicial government?
They're an awkward place that's very fun for storytelling because they are the law. They care about the letter of the law, and they don't want to question the law when the law says, don't question me. And so they're the perfect patsy to just be like, yeah, everything is legit. You're the law person, and you know everything that there is to know. Wink.
They're also in a good position to maybe find out things that the civilians can't find out because they can't talk to some of the people in the higher level of the government, but the sheriffs do. So it's a good position for the main characters to be in, to learn information, but also be put in this situation where they don't want to have people run out and die from poison or whatever.
Yeah, like he very truly believes that anyone who wants to see the outside is gonna kill everyone there, and that's bad. And that is a fine position for his character to have.
Exactly. We also get this opening sequence where there's a voiceover from him about Silo. Our audience has already listened to that opening sequence because I put it at the beginning of the episode, so I didn't feel like we needed to put it here.
Cool. He does say it twice in the show, so in the first episode.
Lots of the clips that we have sort of explain the situation in the silo in the same way, just not as like rousing, I guess. Because I would say, in my opinion, the theme for Silo is like one of my all-time favorite instrumental themes for a show.
Oh, the music. Yeah.
Yes. And so when I had somebody make us an intro for our show, I actually gave them inspirations of The Last of Us and Silo. And so that's how they kind of came up with the music that you hear for Idle Ride.
And that's why it's so good. I think I made 3 notes in here about like, yeah, the music itself is just setting the tension and like you're in it with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love the theme for Silo.
Mm-hmm.
So at all the end of this explanation and Holston doing all these things in his office, he casually kind of walks by the deputy Marnes and places himself in holding cell 3. And Marnes sees him in there and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like trying to convince him not to say something. I mean, obviously, spoilers ahead, everyone, for everything in this show and book. But we all know what he's going to say if you've listened to it. But then Holston says, I want to go out. And Marnes, you see just like the look of like, oh, like, I can't believe you said that. No. And then you get that clip of Rashida Jones' beautiful face, but his wife smiling at him. And then they cut away from that. Let's take a minute, unless you have some more to say about that particular section of the episode.
How do we want to like contrast with the books? Because I do have something I'd like to say with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So Marnes in this show, in the TV show, part of it is such a sympathetic and cool and fun guy. He's kind of no bullshit, but he's also got like deep emotions. And he's a little bit more two-dimensional in the book as like a plot motivation. And so what you'll see from him mostly is like, I'm just a deputy for life and I just don't want to get promoted. And I also want to fuck the mayor. That's it. That's me.
Yeah, I think that's where this show really shines, is it makes the characters more three-dimensional.
Yeah.
Like, the scenes with Allison in the book, there's nothing about the birth control in the
nothing
book.
at all.
Like,
yeah.
The
lady coming up to the table and being like, there's alternative methods. Like, there's nothing about her.
Yeah, nothing about her. Like, Allison just goes crazy, mostly because she learns about the stuff from the deleted files. So that's basically her story. I think she has a total of like maybe 4 pages that she's shown in the beginning of the book. But again, that's the constraints of a short story.
Yeah.
Is that you're not going to elaborate on every single character. They're going to be kind of a little more two-dimensional in a short story. So
I'm definitely reading the book as just kind of like, what is the hidden structure going on behind some of this? Like, it's watching the whole show, I was very skeptical about those suits, and I think I had good reason to be.
Yeah, like, for example, he kind of gives away the major mystery of all of Silo in that first 45 pages.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, but like the idea that the screen is fake is what is like, the reveal at the end of the season. Surprise, surprise, everybody listening.
Spoilers.
But he tells you it in like the first 45 pages of the book. And I'm like, oh, like it all kind of makes sense when you learn the history of how he wrote the book. So yeah, we'll get more into that this episode, but I did want to do some shout outs for the actors here that we see in this very first scene, which is, we've talked about Rashida Jones as Allison. She's amazing. She's been in some of my
the best of everything.
She's in my all-time favorites like Parks and Rec, The Office, Blackish. And then she's also on another kind of funny, interesting dystopian show on Apple Plus called Sunny that I've kind of watched a few episodes.
Okay.
And it's really good. And then we have Will Patton as Marnes. And I love this guy. He's such a great character actor. And I'll never forget a role that he played in a movie that I enjoy, even though I'm sure a lot of people were like, Marcy, why do you like Waterworld and why do you like The Postman? And I'm like, because they're good movies, okay? So he's in The Postman. He's the villain in The Postman, and he does such an amazing job there. And he gave that villain a lot of depth that you can kind of see as his character of Marnes here in the first season of Silo.
And the correct answer to why does Marcy like Waterworld and Postman is how much time do you have? We can tell you.
It's true. I really love those shows. They're so quotable. Maybe not so much Postman, but definitely Waterworld. I know it's silly, but paper for the women is such a funny line. And like, it's gross and disgusting, like the scene, because that guy's gross and disgusting. But the way he says it, like paper for the women. And you're just like again, like I can repeat lines from Waterworld. And then Postman is kind of like if you like Dances with Wolves that Kevin Costner was in and won an Academy Award, it's just like basically that.
But
post-apocalyptic. Yeah, exactly.
So it's better, obviously.
I love Will Patton. And then we have David Oyelowo, and he's Holston. And I didn't really know a lot of what he was in. I guess he was the annoying principal in Interstellar, which is one of my favorite movies. But I haven't really seen a lot of any of the other things that he's been in. But I think he does a really amazing job in this show at being kind of a likable character who's kind of misunderstanding his wife, but you can tell they still love each other. And like the desperation he feels to keep her with him. Throughout the episode, you can see that he's feeling that he's losing her.
Yes.
I mean, he's not doing a great job of trying to like bring her back in, but he doesn't know what to do. And we've all been in that situation with a loved one where we're like, we can see something is happening, but sometimes it's just easier to ignore it than address it. Yep. And this is what happens when you ignore it instead of addressing it.
Not to invoke therapists, but I spoke with a therapist not too long ago, and she said that there's a thing that people tend to do is just sort of feel like the role that they're in is who they are, is their destiny. They have to do it. And like her main point is like, you can just choose to walk off that stage and play a different role. And this sheriff is so much like that. Like, he desperately wants to connect with her. He desperately wants her to be okay. He wants this family with her, but he's also the sheriff, and he can't turn off sheriff brain.
Yes. And so that's a really great segue into kind of the next section of the episode, where Holston and Allison learn that they've won this baby lottery. So people get assigned to have a baby, and they've won it again. It's their third time around trying for a baby. And so this whole section is kind of us seeing them loving each other and be hopeful and really wanting to have a baby. And I think this portion is really important to then see Allison's sort of descent into becoming a cynic and like knowledge and basically becoming Paul and Marcy.
This is what the IT route brings you. Nothing but pain and helping people fix deleted files.
But we really need to see this side of them to understand why it's goes kind of south, right? You need to see them happy first.
Yes.
And like we said before, it's a completely new plot. Like, Allison doesn't really have any big roles at all in the book. And I love this for the show. I love that they bring this birth control theme throughout the full first season. And like Juliet Nichols, who's the main character of the show, later, her dad has like 2 pages in the book. And that's all you ever see of him in book 1. So it's really great that they've expanded that role, and he's kind of taken over the role of a doctor who is doing these procedures for people. So Yeah, the show really adds a lot of depth of character to all these people. It's kind of here where I want to mention there's some parallels in tech to Fallout. I feel like they did a good job of showing all of the old technology, like the computers, our old school computers that we maybe would have used in the 90s, you know?
Yeah. They don't have touch screens because at one point, I always want to say Anne, she touches the screen and says, "What's this file?"
Allison, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to probably mix between the both.
Yeah,
No
I saw
apologies.
that you wrote down Anne in the Discord, and I was like, Anne? Who's that? So yeah, like, people who love Fallout should love this show because there's so much similar in terms of, like, the look of the show. It's just not as bright as Fallout. If you look at the way they filmed it even, it is like oppressive because everything is dark. The lighting is very like limited light sources, which is what would happen if you were actually literally living in a hole your whole life. So I like that they presented that feeling just through lighting.
What's that movie? I know I've seen it twice. You love it. They're like on a spaceship and don't realize that it's already crashed and everyone's like
Oh, Pandorum.
They're like on their way to Pandorum.
Yeah.
Like, give it 1,000 years,
parallel.
they'll all be so pale.
Exactly. Well, they made some good jokes in here. They're teasing each other about having sex a lot and
Put that baby in me.
yeah, and so that's fun and cute. They go to the cafeteria, and this is where you realize that everybody knows that they've won the lottery.
God, that just seeing the looks from all the people in that scene, I felt her so hard of like, why do they gotta know though? Like,
Yeah,
my sex life
exactly.
is private? Shut up. Just stop asking.
Exactly. But there is a little scene later where they're like fucking in the office and like nobody gives a shit because everybody wants to have babies in the silo. So
Yeah, and who
That's a
doesn't
cute
want
scene.
them to have a baby? Like, they'd have a beautiful
Yeah.
baby.
And this is where we meet Gloria, the fertility specialist who approaches their table just sort of on her own, like, hey, what's up? Like, I can help you with fertility stuff. And this is where we see Sheriff Holston come out and kind of protective of his wife here, where he doesn't believe that Gloria can help with fertility. And he's actually almost baiting her
Yeah.
to say something that he can arrest her for, which I think is kind of fucked up.
It's a little, yeah, like, dude, I thought you're the lawman, not the, like, entrapment man.
Yes. So she's providing Allison, or says that if she has any questions, you know, I'm here to talk to you about fertility. And then Holston kind of scares her away.
Yeah.
And it's not the last time we'll meet her.
But like, the countdown clock for how many days they have left to keep trying for a baby, I think it went down 200 days from when that happened to when, like, she starts talking to Gloria.
yeah, she talks to her 3 times total.
Mhm.
And I think like it's kind of 6 months in is the second time they talk, where she's like, never mind, like, I don't believe you. Kind of like she listens to her and then kind of thinks she's crazy.
Yeah.
In this scene, Allison and Holston go to get her birth control removed, and it's a happy experience. She and her husband are behind a screen, and the hospital is like removing the birth control from like a spot near her, probably ovaries, I guess, because it's like on her abdomen. And he shows them the device, which kind of looks like a giant pill that's metal.
It looks like a drill. Like, it's so horrifying.
Yeah, it isn't like a nice looking device.
And it's got
it
blood
definitely
on
looks
it.
old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, look, I did it. Like, I'm showing you, and drops it into like a little tin tray. Again, we get to see, this is the only time really I feel like you get to see the silo where people are happy. You know, you get to see the ambiance before bad shit starts happening. I think it's a good way to open the show. You get an idea of what people are like before the chaos, and then they get down to screwing. So that's like that scene.
And it is graphic, and we see everything. No.
No, it's really adorable and
It
cute.
is.
Like, I like how that they show that. And I think a lot of women can relate to her feelings of being unable to have children. Like, I've had several friends that have had to do like in vitro fertilization and other things. And it is like a huge struggle for people who really want to have children. I feel like the ones that want it the most have the most trouble having them, which is always such a sad thing.
Damn you, God.
And like now we're in a country that's going to take all of the things that you want to be able to like have children or not have children away. So good job, country.
Yeah, like isn't life hard enough when like the biggest idiot you know has 100 kids and like the people who actually deserve to have kids and want to can't, and like can't we just like use science to fix that?
I feel like this show definitely has a lot of parallels to our U.S. politics. And there's different moments in this where I was triggered a little bit watching it because I definitely do not agree. If you don't know already, I'm certainly not MAGA. So,
God, if you think we're MAGA at this point, you must be MAGA.
You're not listening.
Yeah. Only people with that kind of brain deficit.
Sorry. It does kind of feel like a TBI at a certain point, but
honestly.
So the next section is Allison in IT, information technology, and we learn that she works there. And here we get Bernard. Is Tim Robbins, another one of my favorite actors. They got some good, like, actual movie star actors for this show.
As soon as I saw him, I was like, this is going to be a great show.
And he was in Shawshank Redemption, one of the best movies ever made.
Hudsucker Proxy, where a circle on the screen is the funniest thing you'll ever see.
And then he was in a similar movie that is actually one of my favorite kid post-apocalyptic movies, and it's called City of Ember.
Ooh.
And it's got baby Saoirse Ronan, and Tim Robbins is like the dad of her counterpart, like kid male character. So yeah, Tim Robbins, like, hello. But I want to take this moment to do a reading from the book because Tim Robbins is the exact opposite of Bernard from the book. So let me describe how Bernard is from the book.
So it is quothed in the book. The Book of Wool.
The Book of Wool. All right, here we go. Bernard was all teeth, the front ones crooked. He had a wispy mustache that hung down in a weak attempt to hide this flaw. Short, portly, and with a pair of glasses perched on his small nose, he looked every bit the technical expert. Above all, to John's at least, he looked smart. That's it. So, portly, short, with a wispy mustache. The only thing that's similar
is the glasses.
Is the glasses. And also the personalities are extremely different compared to the book. Like, I would classify Tim Robbins as playing Bernard as more like on the autism kind of spectrum of not very social. Like, he is emotionally available to a degree, but doesn't like social situations and feels forced into those situations and having to do things that he doesn't want to do. Whereas Bernard is like the opposite. He's kind of like a Trump type character. He's like controlling, yells a lot, goes
forcing
crazy,
his way.
Gets sweaty and is like, like that's Bernard from the book. And it's like complete opposite personality. I like the way they went with Bernard in the show. Not as, again, two-dimensional or that's a description of what is a generalization of what an IT person might look like instead of Tim Robbins, who's basically like a huge dude. He's like 6'4".
Yeah.
And he is an intimidating presence.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Also, they missed the neck beard, which I think is critical for a lot of IT jokes.
Well, only the ones that use, what is the operating system you use?
I love this.
Linux. Only Linux users have neck beards.
Yes. And there's no Linux in this wool future.
Show me your chin, Paul. You got a neck beard under there?
I just trimmed it right here at the jawline, so no neck.
Yep. Nice. Way to keep that neck clean. All right.
Sir, yes, sir.
So, yes, we see Bernard. He comes up to talk to Allison and tells her that she can't post on the BBS about recovering deleted files. And Paul, what is a BBS?
Well, I was so happy to hear that because I was like, oh, my ears. Is that an acronym from the days of yore? Bulletin board system.
Yeah, it's like, did he just say bulletin board system? And this is how you know their like technology is way old school, because Paul and I remember bulletin board systems. This was how you communicated with people. So I think we're going to do like a little mini lessons on lore and like this kind of tech, as well as like
old school communications.
Yeah, and just like, how do you recover deleted files? Because that's like that's a huge plot device.
It is kind of hilarious how important that plot device is.
Yes, it is. So talk to me a little bit about bulletin board systems.
Okay, so I wasn't huge into this world. There was an old way of communicating long before the Facebooks, long before the MySpace. I almost forgot MySpace. Before even the ICQs and the Skype chats, where you had your own little application. So you would go to a website and it would just always be the same. It would be like a line for FAQs and a line for announcements and like a sticky where all the sticky stuff goes. I never really understood why people thought like sticky was a good name for it, but it was like the things that you needed to know. And yes, it would be one of those systems where the most recent message always pops up to the top and it's darkened and highlighted. I feel like I'm teaching the old lore to children.
Yes.
And yeah,
I can see it in my mind, like, as you're describing it.
Yeah, like, that's exactly what I'm going off of. Like, I haven't thought about them before this. Yeah, and you would just see a title, and it would, like, tickle your brain, and you'd be like, ooh, how to delete a file, or, like, recover a deleted file. I want to know this. And it would appeal to whatever particular interest you had, and you would read those ones, and some of them would turn into flame wars. This is where...
yes.
I just forgot the name of the law, but like the longer that a chat room exists, the more guaranteed it is that someone's going to bring up Hitler as a comparison.
Oh my God.
And so if you have like a 30-page thing that's just gone off, you can guess that by page 5, someone's like, only Hitler would use HP printers, or, you know, shit like that.
Oh my God.
And then there'd always be the forum mods and the administrators who'd be like, can we please get back to the subject of costumes at parties or whatever? Like, it's always something so wildly different. It was a wild, wild west.
Yeah, and forums are basically the equivalent of a BBS, a bulletin board system. Those still exist, and I think just not used as regularly. I think maybe Reddit would be a more parallel.
Yeah, a more modern version. And the 4chan keeps a bit of the, like, crazy, like, I don't like to talk about them, but that is sort of like the roots of the old days.
I don't know about 4chan. So.
Just don't.
Yeah, okay. So also tell us, like, what would it take to recover deleted files from a computer?
So I am not super fresh on this. Like, modern technology could have blown this away, but it was something that we talked about in my computer science classes. And basically, I'm going to just talk about like a spinning disk hard drive because that's what they have in this show. There are other types of hard drives, but so you have a spinning disk hard drive. It's up to a couple dozen very thin CD looking plates. And they have little magnetic heads that will like zap a little 0 or a 1 in the data tray as it rotates. And it's got all this sophisticated like air cushions to keep it from scratching the tray, which is why you should never drop a hard drive, especially when it's on. Like, it's just physicsy as well as this cool putting ones and zeros on, not exactly highs and lows. There's different ways to look at it. But when you delete data, there's a little fingerprint of it left because it's got like a magnetic smear of that 1 or that 0 in representation. And so you basically have to like overwrite it dozens of times to just get rid of any evidence that it was that 1 or that 0 at that particular time. So like some of the best tools out there that like the FBI has, like they can read at a micron level all the data that has been on that drive since at least 3 deletes ago. That was the standard.
Wow.
Nerds would be like, you have to run this deletion tool and make it do at least 3, but probably 7 times, just so the FBI doesn't see your child porn or your drug data or whatever the fuck you put on there. Yeah. It's an interesting warfare between like the criminals and the legal side, and they both kind of don't care about what's right. Anyhow, so... File recovery is something that is best left to a specialized recovery tool, but it basically does the same thing as the better sophisticated FBI tools do. And like my aunt, she's a lawyer. She had a hard drive that was like suddenly losing some of her data from, her critical law cases. You take it to a shop and they literally just put it in their little tool and it reads those zeros and ones, and it does a really good job of recovering stuff that has just been accidentally lost.
So is it like a software program?
It is a software program. Usually it's through a USB connection. Like that's the interface. It has a little box that you just shove your little hard drive in with the 2 standard interfaces that exist now. And it sort of abstracts away as much of that data, that part of the complexity, so that it's just the data that it's looking for.
So I guess the question is, like, how accurate was her typing, like, as, like, this is how you extract data? I feel like it seems like she must have had to have written, like, a program to extract it.
Yeah, so, like, at an abstract level, I'm not going to shit on her capabilities. I don't really know what systems they're even working on. But yes, like, if you have administrative access to the hard drive, you can select certain block areas, and there's all kinds of data structures that help you. The file system itself is considered a tree data type, so it's got like a root, and you start from there, and it's like, okay, there's a file here, and that file is this long, and so that there is something important here. Start reading at this block, and reading at that block, and then do some magic to see if it's a .exe or a .text or some other file, that's the Windows way of dealing with files, is dots. In Linux, it's got a magic number at the beginning, so like I'm gonna just make some bullshit up, but like if the first thing you see is 03F, then that means it's a PDF. Like that's how you know you got a PDF.
Oh, super cool. Well, that was way outside of my wheelhouse, so I appreciate you putting it in terms that I could somewhat understand. And it shows you here in this episode that Allison is really smart. Mm-hmm. She's really curious. She doesn't necessarily care what her supervisor thinks, because she posted it. And later we learned she knew that she shouldn't have, but she wanted other people to know what she knew, you know?
And very importantly, because this is a real skill, she said it in such a way that other people could follow her instructions, which means she's good at document writing.
Yes, and providing a clear step-by-step instruction. Mm-hmm. And you wouldn't know how important that is to life. I want to give a personal story of... With Audacity, that's the program I use to edit Idle Ride. One point, I actually did lose like 3 hours of editing, and a file was corrupted.
Oh, no.
And I was like, okay, I am going to spend an hour trying to figure out how to recover my corrupted file. And if I can't, then I'll go back to just editing the original files. I found a forum. I have done this so many times in my life. I'm not sure that generations below us even know how to do this, but just Googled, how do I recover a corrupted file from Audacity?
Knowing the right keywords is so useful.
Yes, and I found a forum. I don't remember how to do it now, but I found somebody who actually created step-by-step instructions on how to do it, what little software program to download. I did it all. And I got my corrupted file back, and it felt so liberating, but honestly, it was like super frustrating to go through that process of having to like find the information and figure it out. But it was important that this person literally did a step-by-step. You wouldn't believe how many computer problems I've solved, or even just like a simple question I have about like a video game. Remember walkthroughs for video games?
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
I am really good at following directions. This is what I tell people. Like when I did watercolor, they're like, your watercolor is so nice, Marcy. I'm like, because I followed her instructions exactly step by step. That's why it looks good. Like, and then like when I try to do it myself, it looks like shit. But like when she's there telling me exactly how to paint this thing, I can do it. So to get better at things, just get better at following instructions, because I guarantee you there's somebody out there, some weirdo on the internet who wants people to know how to do this, is excited about people finding their information, just like Allison. And they're like, I want somebody else to be able to do this. And they've written the instructions for it. I guarantee you.
There is quite the tension between us as cultural learners and how chimpanzees learn, which is just do it yourself. And there's absolutely a place in the world for just figure it out yourself. Like if you are the kind of person who wants to disassemble an engine block and put it back together just because that's your thing, you're the person to write the instructions for us idiots.
Exactly.
Who need those instructions.
Yeah, because there's people who come to me for plant information because I've already ingested that plant information. And it's easier to ask me than for you to do all that research yourself.
Yes.
And I agree with that. Like, ask the person who knows first, you know? Like, that's how people learn. I don't know.
You do know, we need experts. The world needs experts because there are so many of us that rely on so many technical things that you don't give a fuck about. I don't give a fuck about how to manufacture pills. I need pills. You need pills. Like, we all need pills.
Yes.
Like, we need experts, and we need to listen to their expert advice because they care about the expertise and how it interacts with reality. They're not just some assholes saying that the world's flat.
Woo! Yes, protest. Anyway. So to move on from Allison at IT, she is at home with Holston, and this is the beginning of Holston's reign of terror, where he's basically gaslighting. This is actually where we have a clip, and I might as well just play the clip so we can talk about the gaslighting that happens.
Did you know you were breaking the rules?
No. Maybe. Kind of. There's too many rules.
You wanted to work in IT.
It's not just IT. It's everywhere. We blame the rebels for erasing our history, right?
Yes.
So why can't we ask questions about that stuff? And if losing our history is so bad, why can some goons from Judicial send you down to the mines if you happen to have a relic from the before times?
Allison.
Mm-hmm.
Really? You're gonna use your sheriff voice with me?
Honey, the pact is the only history we have. What if a bunch of rule breakers decide they want to see for themselves what it's like above ground? They somehow manage to
That's not what she
open
was
that
talking
door?
about.
We are done. Part of my job is making sure that doesn't happen.
Part of my job is making sure you don't get to ask the reasonable questions that make sense.
Yeah, because he didn't really address what she said, which was, why can't we try to look for our history? She didn't say, I want to run out of the silo. Like, he definitely starts with you aren't allowed to talk about this because I'm the sheriff. And if we do talk about it, then the potential is there for me to arrest you, which I think is like the worst thing ever, because as a person in a relationship with somebody that I really love, there are things that we talk about together that are not for anyone else's ears.
Yeah.
And you should be safe, even if your husband is the sheriff, to talk about things with him that might be illegal or whatever, but feel safe that he's not going to arrest you for saying something, you know?
Yeah. I love this silo, this place that they've created, because it does give you thought crimes, and it gives you like a real reason why maybe you shouldn't, why they are thought crimes. But like, it's also like, no, I have to be able to think freely. Like, that is critical to who I am as a person. And you're right. Like, if you can't talk to your spouse about it, like, better look for polyamory because you got to find it somewhere. And
right.
like, this was a thing between my mom and my dad, and they sometimes used it on me as well, where my dad would be like, I'm military and I know secrets about the government and the Russians are flying in to attack Alaska today. And I'm like, but that's secret knowledge. How am I supposed to react to that? Like, you could just be lying to me, and I don't want to believe that you're lying to me, but you are using this to like control my argument about something that's, you know, tangentially related. And like,
right.
It is unfair to use the mantle of authority without like a truth feedback loop.
Yeah, I agree. So he kind of like shoots down her argument. She's shut down. And then they transition to the birthing clock that speeds up. So I think it's about 6 months, and Allison still hasn't gotten pregnant. The act of having sex to get pregnant has become more monotonous and routine.
Which they were worried about at the beginning. Like, she was like, hey, just like the last 2 times, this might become like a job. And he's like, oh, it's a birthday job ever.
I think for her, it's become routine.
Yeah.
Often for men, it's maybe a little different. But
well, yeah, she's the one who has to go into the bathroom, have a period, get the disappointment, break the news to the man, console his opinions when he's sad. Like, there's a lot of labor involved in this.
100%, yes. And then they do another cut to now Johns, Marnes, and Holston in the cafeteria. And this is kind of where we see that the mayor, Johns, she's worried about Freedom Day. Is there going to be some unrest? Because there hasn't been a quote-unquote cleaning in a long time. And I can imagine being somebody who watches this for the first time and being like, oh, what is a cleaning?
Yeah.
This sounds really serious. And this reminds me of one of the short stories that really intrigued me when I was quite young called The Lottery. I don't
love
know
The
if
Lottery.
you remember that.
Yes, I wrote a paper in it in college.
Yeah, me too. I think I did in high school, but like I loved The Lottery because it builds up so much, and then winning the lottery turns out to be a bad thing. I'll let you read it, but read the short story, The Lottery.
Yeah, it's not that long. It's very like kind of like the world we're in today in a way.
Yeah, like, and it's a little mind-bendy, a little like you have to think about the ethics of, you know, this decision that the community has made. And this is kind of what this is, even though it's a punishment for technical wrongdoings. It's still something that they might do to relieve the tension in the silo to someone who's done something that's not really that bad, but they get sent out to clean for it, right?
And so everyone wants it to happen, but no one wants it to happen because it's going to be their neighbor. It's a weird dynamic.
Yeah, it is. And this is also where you kind of see that Johns, Marnes, and Holston seem to have a good relationship. They're all talking and free with each other. They're a team here.
Yeah.
And then the whole next section of the episode is basically Allison meeting with Gloria, the fertility person, and George, who we'll talk about. And she starts questioning things even more. And then also Mayor Johns during this time is giving this Freedom Day speech. So it's a lot of different scenes kind of mixing together.
And just so like the environment, the vibe for all of this part is amazing. Like I skipped over it earlier, but now's a good time to call it out. Like the porters are important. You see them walking around, they're carrying shit. Like these guys are the backbone of the society. And I saw some pretzels being made. I saw a lot of dyed cloth. It's like these guys definitely have a bunch of sheep that we haven't seen.
Yeah, the only scene is the very beginning. You see like a herd of cows on one of the levels. So there are levels that have like food and animals and different things. And I love that you brought up the porters because that was something that I wanted to discuss in this section as well.
Excellent.
Because in the book and in the show, they are a very key role in the silos, but there's never a main character that's a porter, which I think is interesting. But the porters go from the bottom of the silo to the top of the silo. and vice versa.
We are told in the books that there are 146 floors. There are 48 floors per section, 3 sections. At one point, they talked about how the IT floors, they have like 3 of their own, are the sparsest ones, and they have like a couple dozen people, so like maybe 20 people on the whole floor. So we can conclude that there are at least 3,000 people. That would be if it was 20 people per floor for all 146. So there's probably more like 10,000 or more people here.
I think in the show or in the book, they do talk about how many, and I think it was 10,000 about there for
estimation.
The number. Good job, Paul. Yeah. The other thing the porters do, which of course it makes sense, is they're the ones that give information.
Yes.
So you can pay porters to give you information, or if it's something really serious, they might be gossiping on the way as they go up the silo or down the silo. And they are relied upon for information. And this, again, kind of parallels for me our current political situation, because I feel like you could silence the porters and then you wouldn't be getting the information, or they could lie about certain information.
Ooh, poison the porter well.
And it's kind of what's happening right now is Trump's trying to control all of the media so that you don't get the information from the porter.
And just sending like mixed messages through official channels and unofficial channels saying like, hey, if you don't respond to this message by Thursday, you're all fired. Psych.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me how important information carrying is.
Yeah.
Like to be that person, to be the news person. It's super important to the whole world, to that and their whole world here in the silo. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
There's also, with the porters, it feels like an ecology, like a whole ecosystem in the silo. And there's like a whale fall parallel. Like when someone does cleaning, the cameras are like up at the top level. So people from the bottom go up to the top. So I guess it's like a flipped whale fall. But like there's this death means so much to the economy. And they talk about that more in the book.
Mm-hmm. That was something that I think they changed. I feel like in the book, they actually had screens on multiple levels. It wasn't just the upper levels, but
you still had to like sort of make a journey like once.
Yeah, like a pilgrimage almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the weird thing about it too, is it's like almost like a religious experience that these people go out and clean for all of the silo, because they're simultaneously wanting the person to do the cleaning, which I guess we haven't really explained the cleaning, but the cleaning is wiping down the sensors that show the outside world on these big screens. And they also want the person to live, but they don't want the person to live, because what would that mean to their world? So there's all these different feelings that people would have every time that this happened. So in this section, the fertility counseling lady, Gloria, finds Allison again. And Allison is interested in talking to her, so she goes back to her apartment. And then she does some weird stuff, like turning on water in her apartment. She does this a couple of times to like hide their voices so that Judicial can't hear them. And you're like, okay, so they're kind of aware of listening devices, or at least this conspiracy theory lady does.
Or she's just like religious and thinks the gods are listening, which same effect.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure. I think she does say Judicial, though.
Okay.
During the conversation.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, you don't have to know spy tech to have this kind of instinct.
And this lady doesn't pull any punches. Like, she immediately starts talking about, have you ever wondered, like, what happened and the rebellion, and, like, lists all these things and suggests that, you know, why haven't you gotten pregnant these last 3 times? Like, it doesn't make sense. And Allison gets kind of freaked out by her, like, intensity, I think, and leaves. Because
it comes across in the same way as, like, the space laser Jews are killing us all. Like,
yeah, right? So she kind of leaves, and then they cut to a scene with her and Holston again. Here's another gaslighting scene. She's like, I talked to this lady, and it made me start to think, like, yeah, it's weird that we've done this 3 times, and I haven't gotten pregnant. Like, don't you think that's strange? And he's like, what are you talking? Why are you talking to that crazy lady? She's just filling your head with nonsense. just believe everything I say because I'm a man. I mean, that's the way it kind of feels. He's actually, the actor plays it off really well. I'm shocked that, like, I don't dislike him more, like, because you can tell how much he loves her, and that these attitudes that he's bringing forth is basically just his sheriff self and not his husband's self. And so from that scene, they kind of transition to her again at IT, where we learn that this guy named George keeps submitting tickets, and he submitted like several of them. But Freedom Day is coming up, and Allison has said that she's going to work Freedom Day because her husband's working it as the sheriff. So she gets this ticket from this guy who's been asking for help constantly and been bothering IT, basically.
Ain't that the way?
Yeah. It's like, user error.
He's probably trying to save a spreadsheet as like a Paint document.
Allison, this is also where Allison and Holston have sex in the office because she like comes to visit him, and they talk about how she's working on Freedom Day. And it's a cute scene. Everybody outside the office knows that they're having sex, and they just kind of ignore it and laugh about it. And then Freedom Day is upon us, and Allison is going down to see George. And this is sort of where we get to see the life in Silo a little more, like you said, with like all the food carts, and everybody's happy.
It's really
in
cute.
This scene.
They have like a slide that they put on the spiral staircase that's central to the thing that kids are just sliding down. There's like
I loved
square
that.
coins. There's this like play that we see a little bit of where like an evil Thor's trying to open the surface.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this is definitely the calm before the storm, where we kind of see that they're just human. They're, living their lives the best that they know how. They're having fun. It's going to be a party day, so everybody's excited about it. Allison reaches this George character's apartment. He basically reveals that he's been asking for help and hoping to get her, and he was hoping that she'd come today because he knew that her husband is the sheriff.
Right. And like he had downloaded her instructions before they were deleted, but like somehow that wasn't quite good enough.
Well, he printed it off, which we learn is like really expensive.
Yes.
And that's a huge thing in the book, that like paying for paper is like a huge deal because paper is very limited in the silo, which makes sense.
Paper.
Paper. Oh, back to Waterworld. See, Waterworld applies to everything. And he takes out, he's like, I wanted to talk to you because I'm having trouble with this device. And he pulls out a spinning hard drive that Paul just talked about, and it looks all like rusty. And he thinks it might be a relic. So that's anything from before the rebellion is considered a relic.
And like they, I guess, have an exception for some kids' books because they're talking about how like the colors in kids' books are so unreal. This is mostly in the book lore, but yeah, like there are a couple accepted relics, but for the most part, it's just bad.
Yeah, if they're like harmless relics, something that you got from your parents that was like a ring or something that doesn't tell about the history.
Yeah.
And at first she's like, I don't know, but then she decides to help him a little bit. And I love that Rashida Jones like puts on these glasses, and you're like, fuck you, Rashida Jones. You're like even sexier when you put on your glasses. So she's like trying to help him and reads on the hard drive that it's a library hard drive.
Right. Oh, and she has like one of the most classic IT lines where he's like, can I help? And she's like, you can shut the fuck up.
Yeah, let me do what I'm going to do here. As they're getting into this hard drive, revealing some of the files, she realizes that, oh, it really is a relic. And she freaks out and is like, I can't be part of this. And he's like, are you going to tell your husband? And she's like, no, but you better like get rid of this. And she runs off.
I would just like to say that this scene is a beautiful example of just the little moments and the little things that the actors do to just really sell the show. Because you see her internal conflict. You see that she's a fucking nerd that wants to know stuff. You see that, like, It hurts her that she walks away from this. There's a moment where she says, do you have a magnifying glass? And he's not even fully in the scene. He's got his arms crossed and he's like, oh, sure. And like he pulls one out and like she's like, yeah, better. And he's like, this is the best we got. Like there's all these little things that just set the life in this place and the people of the world. Like it's so good.
Oh, yeah. And I think later you learn that any magnification greater than a certain amount is not allowed.
Yeah.
And you know that some of our earliest innovations were things like making a telescope that heightens our ability to see things in space. Galileo was jailed for seeing what was previous slot as heavenly bodies, and he was like, actually there's shit on the moon, and they're like, gotta put you in jail.
Literal shit on the moon, guys. Like there's something up there.
But it wasn't like pristine because it
Right.
looks like a perfect circle, right? But then he was like, oh, there's like craters and stuff in it.
Yeah, and it's
And I'm simplifying it, but
it just sets your imagination on fire of like, why is magnification beyond 2 times illegal or whatever the amount is? It's like, well, you could probably start figuring stuff out about the outer world if you are a little bit more able to parse the details.
yeah. And then throughout this, we get some cutscenes to the mayor giving her big Freedom Day speech. So I do have that as a clip.
Okay, good.
6 minutes and 6 seconds past 6 o'clock on this day.
Lots of sixes. That's like devil stuff right there.
Devil.
That is the moment we regained our freedom.
Freedom from rebels. Wait, what?
We are gathered on the anniversary to remember the terror of the rebellion. If they had succeeded, if they had opened the door to the outside world, none of us would be here right now. They didn't succeed. Thank the founders. But they did manage to take away our history.
Got anything more powerful?
That's as powerful as they get.
It's letters, but I think it says library.
They destroyed our computer drives. They shredded our files and burned all the books in our libraries.
No, they didn't.
Yep.
Not everyone.
Somebody's lying right now.
I'm
But
convinced
they were
Johns
stopped.
doesn't know.
Okay.
Our heroic
Patsy.
forebears won the day.
Look at this.
What is it?
I love the old school, like, crunching sound.
You shouldn't either. You should bury this.
Bury it? Are you kidding? This is the greatest.
This is a relic. It's against the law to even have it.
No, but this could be the key to everything we don't know. We have
They
to
can
look.
send you out to clean for this.
Yeah, so I like the juxtaposition of the propaganda happening
Yeah.
as she's learning information that is everything that they don't want you to believe, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I would go out and say that this is my favorite scene of the episode.
yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite scene of this episode. I feel like it was a very like information heavy kind of episode. There's lots of
Yeah.
emotions and stuff in it, but they're setting up
They
the
are.
stage for Juliet.
Yes. And first episodes are tough because you do have to introduce characters and plot and setting.
It was interesting that they showed that play that you mentioned earlier. Just random thought. But in the book, Juliet's name comes from a childhood play that's Romeo and Juliet.
What?
And
I may have heard of that.
yeah. Yes. So it was kind of, I think that they're trying to feed some of that in there from the book. But yeah, so a great job of mixing those two things. And also there's a scene where There's the paper lanterns that are rising into the top of the silo.
Yeah.
Rashida Jones is standing in the crowd listening to the speech later after she leaves the apartment. And she's trying to like hide her feelings that she's having about learning this information. And I kind of like that as she's coming to these realizations, the lanterns are kind of going up the silo, up towards the door of the silo. So I feel like it's sort of representative of like her knowledge is going to kind of take her out and up.
Oh, I like that.
And out of the silo. I don't know if they meant it that way, but I think her thoughts are becoming like those lanterns, like they can't be contained.
Yeah. And along those lines, it's kind of funny that they're saying, like, congratulations to us for stopping the people from opening the doors. Let's show lanterns up towards them.
Yeah, it is kind of a weird symbolic thing that I felt like applied more to Rashida Jones than the message the mayor was trying to send.
Yes.
But so the next block of time is basically Allison contemplating this knowledge that she learns and then re-evaluating it. And this is where we really see that it's Allison's story, not really Holston's story.
And so at this point, would you agree she doesn't give a fuck about the baby stuff now?
Yes. She's jaded about that whole process, and it's more about her learning why they would do something like that. And so this is where we see Allison pulling away from Holston a little bit.
Yeah.
You can tell Holston notices.
Yep.
But he doesn't really do anything about it. And I feel like this is a good picture of long-term relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been at trying to have a baby for a year. Like, it makes sense that she might be depressed that it's not going to happen. He thinks it's about that. He doesn't know that there's other stuff happening. So he's trying his best. There's a really good scene in it where they're like making out and she's like, yeah, no, I'm not really into it. And he immediately stops.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a good consent scene where
Yes.
he stops. He's like, so is this like a real tired or
The
like
70 floors tired or a real...
Yeah. Yeah. And like he questions her a little bit and she's like, yeah, I just want to go to sleep. And he doesn't like push like a weirdo for anything more.
Yep.
So you're seeing them pull apart from each other. And then she decides after a while that she wants to get more information. So she goes back to both Gloria and George again.
This is when she wants to go on a shopping spree.
Yes. So
okay.
he's like, oh, did you spend all my money? Like later. He knows something's going on. He just doesn't know what it is, which is so funny. He's so bad at investigating. I feel like he's not a good detective. Like, they definitely need a detective part of the police. But maybe they don't. I mean, I don't think Judicial would want detectives, right? Because detectives have to be
just
curious.
Find out. Yep.
And maybe they deliberately choose sheriffs that are kind of boneheads. So that's why Juliet makes a bad sheriff, because she's smart and she's inquisitive. So she goes and meets with George again, and she's like, let's open up those files, buddy, because she can tell he's kind of an idiot and doesn't really know how to do it. And at the end of the day, she's like, oh, I better get going. Let's just do one more.
Just one more file.
I had to rewind a couple times to like figure out what the title of that file was, but it was Jane Carmody's Cleaning. And so they click on it, and it's, again, a really good scene. You'll see this video multiple times in the series, and there was some color in it. It was very limited color.
Okay.
But
It was
like, it was enough that you could tell from their expressions this wonder that they had, that it was like trees and birds, and the shock and awe that they felt seeing this one video file.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it from their perspective, having always been surrounded by concrete, and these stairs are like a major part of their life of going up and down stairs, and like, we're used to flat, the earth.
Yes.
Sky and houses, and they're constantly restricted. It is hard for me to imagine that lifestyle.
You sort of touched on a key aspect of like controversial philosophy, this concept of qualia, where like, can you know what something is without experiencing it? Can you know the color green if you've never seen it, but you like know all the science about it? And yeah, like it's sort of heartbreaking to think about there are actual living beings who are suffering from these kinds of like horrible prisons, like pigs that will never see the light of day, and
Yeah.
you just go outside and look at birds.
Or people who have been convicted of a crime
Yeah.
as a juvenile and are like
Very
going to be
much
in
so.
jail for 25 years of their life, you
Yeah.
know? This is something that we actually do put other humans through, just in a different way.
We do.
But-
Yep.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, those thought experiments. So she gets home after this mind-blowing experience, and Holston is once again like a clueless motherfucker. He's like laying in the bed, and he's like, "Oh, did you spend all our chits?" And she's like, "No."
No, I'm
And,
gonna
like,
take a shower.
I would immediately be like, "That's what you went down there to do, and you didn't come up with anything? Like, what's going on?"
Right, like she's not hiding it very well either. She wants him to know. But like from a sheriff perspective, like I can imagine her going straight to the shower is like the most suspect thing you can do. Like there's a song, "Let Me Smell Your Dick." He should be doing that about he should at least
Well,
be
yeah.
questioning that.
And she did walk up 70 flights of stairs.
So yeah, you're just gonna be funky anyway.
But he definitely should be curious about it.
Sorry, is that 70 flights of stairs funk, or is that doing it funk?
Yeah, so once again, she just tells him no to sex because he's like, "We have like 7 hours. Maybe something will happen." And she's like, "No, I'm not having sex with you right now."
His response to that is kind of the best that he does in all of this. He puts his hand on her gently and he says, "Hey, are you okay?" And she does a line that I have definitely said in my life before. "No, but I will be."
Yeah, that's true. From his knowledge, she's probably upset because she can't have a baby.
Yeah. like,
And they know
is the
this is the
end.
last time. Yeah. And that way, it excuses his dumb brain, male brain, because it's focused on this one thing and doesn't understand the complexity of what's going on in her life outside of that. I think he got clues. Like, she definitely gave him clues. She tried to talk to him about it,
A lot.
and he
yeah.
gaslit her.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
he does tell her in this moment that tomorrow we have to go get your birth control removed, and she's like, "I'm gonna sleep in. I'll meet you there." The next scene is him sitting in the doctor's office, and she hasn't arrived, so he goes looking for her. He goes to IT. They said that she called in sick, so he goes back home, and she's sitting at their table, and she looks wrecked. Like, Rashida Jones has a hard time looking bad, but they definitely beat her up for this scene. And I have this clip for this scene.
I was going to talk to you last night, but I wasn't sure you're going to be able to hear what I had to say. You don't always listen, honey.
What are you talking about? I always
Talking is not listening. Because you're the lawman, I figured I needed to give you some proof.
Proof of what?
I can't tell you how I know this, but they were never going to let us have children.
What?
I'm not the type of person they want having kids.
Who's they?
The enforcers of the pact. They want docile, obedient people.
I saw Dr. Leonard take out your birth control.
No, you didn't.
I was there.
He was behind a curtain. You didn't see what he was doing.
It was birth control
I can
theater.
assure you, he didn't take out my birth control.
How do you know that?
Because I just did.
Oh.
Quick, have sex.
So she's holding up the birth control device in her hand, and she's cut it out of her body. And, you know, this is where he presents himself as a good husband. He freaks out and like runs the fastest I've ever seen somebody run in a show to get the doctor. And as he's running around, grabs the doctor, Marnes sees him in the hall and he's like, Holston. And he's like, I can't talk to you right now, my wife. And he's like, she's up in the cafeteria. And so I have that clip.
Okay, before we get to
well.
that clip, let me just rewind
Okay.
and say, like, what he did wrong and why we shouldn't blame him for it. So she reveals her open wound. The camera cuts to the apple with the bloody knife on the plate, which is such a cool visual. And he freaks out and runs away from someone with bleeding. Like, he does say, put your hand on it, like, stop the bleeding. Like, he assumes she's just going to sit there and do what she's been doing for the past several hours. He should not have left her alone. He should have opened the door and yelled, like, get a porter to call the doctor. This is an emergency. And then gone back to her. But he also had panic sheriff. I must solve all problems brain. So it's fine.
Right. I agree with you that if you have a person who just self-mutilated themselves, the last thing you want to do is leave them alone with a knife.
Yeah.
She's obviously acting outside of character, whether or not she's right or not.
Yeah, she could be as rational as you want. She's still, like, just shocked her body.
Yeah. So he learns that Allison is in the cafeteria, so he runs up there, and then we get this scene with Allison.
None of this is real. Do you see? They want to keep you in here, so they're lying to you. It's
Lying
green
to
out
you.
there. There's
So
green
good.
trees, there's blue skies. There's things flying in the air.
Birds or something.
Is no one listening to me? They're keeping us here. This display is a
Allison.
lie.
Allison.
They want us to...
Come with me.
No. Listen.
Look, we tried,
Listen to
we
me.
tried 3 times. I know it's hard.
I'm not crazy. Why are you treating me like I'm
Of course not. Of course not.
Allison, I've known several patients who have had breakdowns.
I'm not having a breakdown.
Thanks
You
for
are
helping,
bleeding.
Doc.
You need to calm
No.
You need to calm down. Worst thing you could say to a woman.
I've been thinking
Yeah.
about this a lot, okay? Please. Just know there's no other way. I'm sorry, honey.
It's okay. It's okay.
I want to go out!
It happened.
I want to go out.
You mean on a date, right?
And you just see the sheriff break down in that moment. Like, you just know there's no way to hide that she said this. So I do have another little book reading here. 'Cause
Okay,
the
please.
breakdown of Allison is way different. in
Way
the book.
different. Yes.
And it's like page 25. So here it is, Allison breaking down in the book Wool. I want to go out! I want to go out! I want to go out! Holston arrived at the cafeteria in a sprint. His radio was still squawking. Deputy Marnes yelling something about Allison. Holston hadn't even taken the time to respond, had just bolted up 3 flights of stairs toward the scene. What's going on? He asked. He swam through the crowd by the door and found his wife writhing on the cafeteria floor, held down by Connor and 2 food staff employees. Let her go! He slapped their hands off his wife's shins and was nearly rewarded by one of her boots to his chin. Settle down, he said. He reached for her wrists, which were twisting this way and that to get out of the desperate grips of grown men. Baby, what the hell is going on? She was running for the airlock, Connor said through grunts of exertion. Percy corralled her kicking feet, and Holston didn't stop him. He saw now why 3 men were needed. He leaned close to Allison, making sure she saw him. Her eyes were wild, peeking through a curtain of disheveled hair. Allison, baby, you've got to settle down. I want to go out. I want to go out. Her voice had quieted, but the words kept tumbling out. So she's definitely presented as a crazy woman.
Yeah.
In this scene compared to the Allison that we know from the show, who's very rational, but in a moment of distress, basically.
Yeah. No one's standing up and, like, listening to her She's getting increasingly desperate because they're talking about baby shit, and she's like, that's not what I'm talking about here.
I do think that the baby thing is a cracking moment for her,
for
though,
sure.
because she knows that she's never going to have a child, and that's something that she's wanted for so long. And so that stress, along with learning all this new information, it did cause her to have somewhat of a mental breakdown. Like she is, but it's all justified.
Yeah, it's about the lies and about why can't we talk about this and like what else don't we know?
Yeah, and no one believing her, not even her husband, and that feeling of being alone.
Yeah. I love how the show did it better with like she says I want to go out and he breaks right there. And in the book, it says that he like does his sheriff duty and puts her in a prison cell and then breaks down. And like that's fine, but it's not good cinema.
I mean, in reality, you would, knowing that your wife just said that she wanted to kill herself, basically.
Yeah.
Be freaking out. And so Marnes is actually the one that puts the handcuffs on Allison in this scene while Holston is sort of just
Standing.
in shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get another little scene of the three Johns, the mayor, Marnes, and Holston having a little powwow about what they're going to do about Allison. And Holston's basically like, we can't do anything about it. Like, she said it in front of a whole cafeteria full of people. We can't lie. And despite him not wanting her to go out, he knows he has to do his duty and that they have to make her go clean.
Yeah. Instead of the putting her in the prison cell and then breaking down, they showed his commitment to his duty. They gave him an out of like, you don't have to do this.
Sure.
And he's like, what's the point of doing what you know is right only when it's easy?
Also, I think this allows him to be with her more. Like, if he wasn't in that role, he wouldn't be able to see her for the very last time.
That's true.
In that sense, he's able to be with his loved one at the very moment that she leaves the silo. And then, of course, they end with them talking about, well, this is going to attract a huge crowd. And this is where it, again, makes me feel like that short story of the lottery where, like, it's almost like the Colosseum. People aren't cheering for it to happen, but it's that spectacle kind of aspect to it.
And
that
kind
makes
of
it
the
weird.
Looking at the accident as you drive by.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Morbid curiosity.
So the next section is kind of the end of the episode where Holston and Allison have these like long talks in her holding cell. She's become quite serene once she's been put in the holding cell. And she's trying to tell him information that he's not really open to. She says that she loves him. She tells him that everything isn't true. She doesn't think she's going to die outside. And then she starts talking about how IT has the power to change what the screen says. And he's not really buying it, but I do have a clip for that scene.
If I could wind back the clock, not know what I know, I would. Oh, in a heartbeat. But what I found out, what they told us isn't true. Why we're here, what happened 140 years ago, why and who gets to have children. And that's not even the big thing.
So?
So?
You find out something like that, you bring it to me, to Mayor Johns, to Judicial. You let everyone in the silo know. What you don't do is say the words that get you sent out there to die.
That's the big thing I found out. I won't die out there. Listen, they have the ability to change what we see on the screens, in the cafeteria, throughout the silo, everywhere.
What are you talking
They
about?
take an image and they alter it somehow. So what we see is not what's out there. It's what they want us to think is out there.
What's that? Right there.
Holston.
And that. The last three people who cleaned.
Or maybe that's not what it is.
It's deep fakes.
Yeah, again, stuff like we're dealing with right now. It's crazy how much of these things like kind of relate to our current times.
And I think we're living at just the right time, at just the right perspective to be like, oh, I can see the other side of that, where they're like, oh, that's even possible? Like, I never even thought they had that technology.
I have another quote from the book. It's one of my favorite sections of the book, or quotes from the book, because it's written really well. It's from Holston's perspective, and he's talking about the screens. Holston wondered if anyone in the silo knew how to fix them, or if they had the tools required for such a delicate job. Were they dead forever? He's talking about pixels on the screen. Were they dead forever, like Allison? Would all of the pixels be dead eventually? Holston imagined a day when half of the pixels were stark white, and then generations later when only a few gray and brown ones remained. Then a mere dozen, the world having flipped to a new state, the people of the silo thinking the outside world was on fire, and the only true pixels now mistaken for malfunctioning ones. In that scene, he's already out going to clean, but him describing that whatever you're fed to believe, you're going to believe it because the people who told you before said that it's true, right?
Yeah. There's a cool wisdom and depth to his perspective there that I try to have sometimes. It's like the moment that you're living is not forever, and everything will be different, and everything has been different. We live in a special time where the moon and the sun happen to be at just the right distances where they can fully eclipse. That ain't gonna last forever, and it used to be the moon was too big. Like, everything changes, and you gotta think about that. Like, you can't be like, oh, gender's just what I was taught in grade school. It's like, no, you have a very stupid, childish, flash in the pan knowledge of what that is. Like, all concepts change.
Yeah, and I think part of the human condition is fighting against the new things, which is so funny. Like, it is hard to change because it's comfortable to have simple ideas that don't change, and you've got one thing, and people like being comfortable. And the funny thing is, though, the more you fight about this leaving it the same way to be comfortable, the more you make yourself uncomfortable.
Yes.
So if you would just like take a second and be like, how important is this really to my life and to me, and how hard is it really gonna be?
Right. And honestly, do you remember a time before running water in a household? Because that's the inconveniences we used to have, and we keep making the world better in ways that, like, you're not paying attention to while you're bitching about some thing that barely affects your life, probably. Trans athletes do not affect my life.
Well, and that's the funny thing about our current political system is that they use these smoke screens of things like, oh, trans are horrible people or whatever. And so they're taking away trans abilities to transition, but in effect, they're actually taking away from your daughter, from your mother, because hormone replacement therapy is used mostly for just the general population that aren't trans. So like 95% of the people using those drugs are not trans people.
Yeah, but there's legitimate medical uses for everything, and legitimate is such a stupid, judgmental phrase to throw at other people. And I loved seeing a picture of Elon Musk going bald, and then the description was like, he's using gender-affirming care with his hair replacement. Like,
So, to get back to the episode, Allison asks Holston, why do people clean? ? And that is an interesting question. Paul, do you think that people would clean after seeing these fake images of like green and birds? Because they obviously know that the people in the silo can't see it. Or are they just so overwhelmed by the experience that they have to like clean it just to make sure they can see it properly? Like,
that does seem to be the setup. It's like, they're so happy and in awe that they're like, the world needs to know. Maybe it's just a dirty screen.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me that every person that's gone out to clean, I mean, I know Juliet's smart, but you would have to know that obviously the inside isn't getting the same view that I'm getting. But,
yeah. And would you clean, Marcy?
Well, if the whole premise of me going outside is to see the outside, and they wanted me to do it, I'm a very contrarian person. I'm pretty sure I would not do it.
Yeah. I might put something there like, I don't know, clean me.
So in the show, one of the things from season 2 is that engineering has like hand signs and signals that they use. They basically use sign language. And I guess it's hard with those big gloves, but like if I was Juliet, I would have been like hand signing all over the place.
They're liars, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. But she asks Holston this question, and then she says, if the outside is beautiful, I'll pull out my wool and clean. So here's the title of the book is Wool, and the wool is a very important part of the mythology of the silo.
Mm-hmm.
The suit and the wool is very important because it's created perfectly for the person that's going to go out, and the wool is like the perfect wool, and they make it like this mysterious, mystical thing that you put on the suit and go out and clean.
Yeah. And what a waste of material that suit is, especially if it's a projection screen on a helmet. Like, I don't know. We probably have that tech. I guess we do with like VR glasses. But yeah, they're losing like critical gold and other resources by sending someone out to clean.
Well, we learn from Bernard in season 2 that he really is the only one that knows the main secret, that it's a fake screen, and nobody else knows. So the people who are dressing you don't know that it's fake. People want to know if the outside world is green and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
and safe to be out in. And so, I mean, I guess that's part of it, is that they have to send people out to determine if it's safe out there.
It's like Noah and those birds.
Yeah. And so Allison is being sent to clean. She's dressed in the outfit. Johns and Holston kind of read her the official statements before she goes out, and it basically pleads for the person to actually do the cleaning, which I think is really interesting. And the scene where the vault doors open is very Fallout-y.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a decontamination chamber, so like it closes the inner door, you get decontaminated, it opens the outer door, and then once she walks out, when the outer door closes, like fire happens. This is a very important thing to remember for season 2,
Ooh.
but they show it here. And it really just is everybody watching her walk out, and she goes up to the sensor. She does end up cleaning it, and Holston is watching her do the cleaning from the holding cell.
Mm-hmm.
And she smiles a little bit, and it looks like she's smiling directly at Holston. And it's like very dramatic. It's a long scene.
Yeah.
But like she stumbles and almost falls, and everybody's like, and then she keeps going. She almost makes it to the top of the hill, and then she collapses by the tree.
Yeah. And so it's a very good play. The whole time I was suspecting, like, there's poison in that oxygen tank. Like, everything's fine. It's like, yeah, just make it a little less poison each time, and people will get further, and everybody can be like, it's getting better, but it's still terrible.
Yeah, exactly. And so you see Holston being very devastated, and they cut to George for a quick second, and he looks quite resolute after seeing that she cleaned, because then he thinks that, in fact, the world outside is
Green.
Green, right? We get a 2 years later title, and Holston is drinking his coffee and goes to his office. And we learn from Marnes, who comes in, that George Wilkins has died. Either he fell over or somebody tossed him over one of the stair rails. And he says there's an engineer in the down deep who says that George was murdered.
Dun dun dun.
It's a murder mystery now. Again, none of this murder mystery plot is at all in the books. Literally, There's like 300 pages, which I think is like the second novella of Marnes and Johns walking down to get Juliet and then walking back up.
Yes.
Which is all the next episodes are that. I remember just being like, this is like, we haven't even met Juliet yet. It's been like 300 pages. And there's none of the intrigue that happens in this season. Holston goes down to check on the body, and Hank, who is the deputy that is in the Down Deep, is with them.
And he's a pretty guy.
He is a pretty guy, and he's a main character. I didn't look up the actor for him, but I'll probably do it next time because he's featured more in the later episodes. And he's a good guy who is very much a part of the Down Deep community, which is like the lowest levels of the silo that are the engineering levels. And I laughed so hard because their idea of investigation of a body is pulling out the morgue metal tray and just staring at the body for a second. And then they're like, okay, I investigated.
Yep, bruises.
And they're like, where's this engineer? I do have the last clip here of Hank talking about Juliet.
Meeting with us isn't optional, Hank. She says this guy was murdered. We need to speak to her.
What came up? The generator. It's been giving her fits.
What does she do?
Well, she pretty much keeps everyone in the silo alive.
So this is a big contentious thing in the silo. Who's actually keeping the silo alive? Because
Yes.
IT thinks they are.
Yup.
The Down Deep thinks they are.
I bet all the food people.
Supply
Yeah.
thinks they are. So I think Juliet is the linchpin here. If they didn't have generators, they wouldn't have food. They wouldn't have IT.
Air. The air would stop circulating.
Water.
Yep.
They'd be drowned.
I think the one agreement is that the mayor doesn't actually run anything. That's what we can all agree on.
Yeah. So they head to the generator, who in itself is a character. The generator takes up a lot of time in people's conversation in the next few episodes. And they pulled from the next novel a part of the Wool book, the description of Juliet, which Rebecca Ferguson, again, is like perfect for this role. She looks buff and strong and she's smart and like has the right attitude that Juliet portrays in the book. And I think of all the things that I think are a little like, the show is better at, Hugh Howey did an amazing job at writing a female character that is so compelling. That is what kept me going in the book, is this character who you're rooting for, who's funny, sarcastic, smart, like all of those things. So let's listen to the description of Juliet from the book. The power and energy in the room were palpable. As they reached the end of the second machine, Johns finally saw a solitary figure working beside it. A young-looking woman in overalls, a hard hat on, brown braided hair hanging out the back, was leaning into a wrench nearly as long as she was tall. Her presence gave the machines a terrifying sense of scale, but she didn't seem to fear them. She threw herself into her wrench, her body frightfully close to the roaring unit, reminding Johns of an old children's tale where a mouse pulled a barb out of an imaginary beast called an elephant. I like how they call it imaginary. The idea of a woman this size fixing a machine of such ferocity seemed absurd, but she watched the woman work while the young shadow slipped through a gate and ran up to tug on her overalls. I feel like this is a almost perfect description and opening of a character presented from someone else's perspective. And that's what happens here. You basically only get that glimpse of Juliet described almost just like this.
Yeah.
And it's seen almost exactly the same in the show.
I think the only difference is a lack of a hard hat.
Yeah, I think there's more safety gear in the book than there is in the show. So that's all you get of Juliet. And you hear Marnes kind of, as they're pulling out from the scene, with Juliet, asking Holston why he came back to life after he met Juliet. And Holston doesn't really answer that question, but says that he started listening to Allison again. And then he says, I want to go. I want to go out and see my wife. I want to know the truth. So he's finally believing Allison. And Juliet led him on the journey of truth.
Amazing.
So that's the end.
The end
of the episode.
I like you adding the bits from the book too, like Marcy story time.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a fun addition because we've only done ones that came from other shows or video games, which you can't really add flavor from those other mediums very well.
And then I pushed the down button and the B button.
But yeah, I do think Hugh Howey has kind of a Stephen King way of writing where he is really good at describing the world and the people, but the depth of character I think he has there, but because, like we said, it was a short story, it's very limited in this first novel. I'm really curious. I can't wait to read the second one and see if that's changed a little bit. The first season is literally only half of the first book.
Okay.
So you don't have to read as much as you thought you had to, Paul.
I mean, I'm down for it. I just needed to get through that first scene, really.
Mm-hmm. It does kind of feel like Stephen King's Dark Tower, where a lot of people don't like the first book, but that was actually a short story that Stephen King wrote that created this whole other epic series, but people are like, it doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the series. And I really enjoy that first journey you go on in the Dark Tower series. But it is obviously very different from the rest of the Dark Tower novels. And I think it's because they both started from these short form versions. And I do find it really interesting that the characters that are featured in this first season of Silo basically are only featured for a very small portion of the book. I'll continue to talk about that. But he definitely melds, like George, I think, ends up being a melding of her shadow in the book. Or not her shadow, but Walker's shadow, who was from the Down Deep. So they kind of like meld her lover and that character. Probably because in the book, they don't talk at all really about who this person she loved was. And we see him a lot. It's George in the television show. So they definitely meld a bunch of characters together from the book to make the characters in the show.
Also, we should probably say what a shadow is.
Yeah, so there's some good descriptions in the book, and maybe we can leave that as a mystery for next time.
What is a shadow? Do you have one? Do I have one?
I love how he describes it, so let's hold off for that one. And is there anything else that you feel like you want to go over?
Love the vibe. Oh, I definitely had sort of a Lost feeling when I was watching this, and I hated Lost's ending so much that I was scared to like the show, but I kept with it, and it was smart and nice enough to actually like fulfill some of its promises that, yes, this is not a Lost show to me.
It isn't, and I think you'll get some answers, so that's nice. Well, the next episode is called Holston's Pick. If you haven't figured it out,
Is it his nose? Oh.
Holston picks his nose. That's the name
That's
of the
alternate
episode.
title.
And I'm very happy to be starting a new season. And if you like listening to us, please rate and review us on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now I'm almost exclusively over on Blue Sky at Idle Ride on Blue Sky. So come join us over there if you want to chat with us. And super happy to be on to a new fun season of a show.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for listening. All right, bye.
Bye.